Our next speaker is Brother Kenny Grant. He is the CEO of Band of Brothers. He's also the senior pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. You know, his topic, integrating faith, religion, culture, and diversity in our community, is really something we all need to hear and take to heart, because faith is important, right? But also, he's my pastor. And Brother Kenny is the kind of guy, he's a little Marine, and he's going to tell it like it is. You're going to love my pastor, Mr. Brother Kenny.
Well, Tina did it. She invited a Baptist preacher. I was thinking about a story about this guy who said, I've had it with life as I know it. I want something different. And so he went down to the local monastery. He says, I want to join into this monastery. And there's a head monk there. He said, well, we don't have any openings, but we do have an apprentice program. It's a 40-year program. And we are sworn to silences, but here's how it works. You work for 10 years, you get a chance to say 2 words. So the guy thought about it. He said, well, I'm in. So sure enough, he comes to this monastery. He works day in, day out. It's been 10 years. The head monk is still there. He calls the guy in. He says, okay, it's been 10 years. You get 2 words. What do you want to say? The guy said, cold food. He goes back out. He works. 5 years, 10 years, another 10 years. It's been 20 years. The head monk is getting old, but he's there. He calls the guy in. He says, okay, it's been another 10 years. What do you have to say? He said, bed hard. He goes back out. He works. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's been 30 years. The head monk is getting very old, but he's still there. He calls the guy in and says, okay, it's been 30 years. What do you have to say? The guy said, dead tired. He goes back out. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. The head monk is very old, but he's still there. He calls the guy in. He says, okay, it's been 40 years. Another 10 years have passed. You get 2 words. Let's hear them. The guy said, I quit. And the head monk said, it's a good thing, too. You hadn't done nothing but complain since you've been here. I love that story. The moral of that story is it's not how much you say, it's what you say. And what you say matters. I hope in just this short time that what I say will land upon your hearts. I can't do that. I can only speak. But I pray and hope that what I say will land upon your heart. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in the dark and bitter cold. And each one possessed a stick of wood, or so the story is told. Now they're dying fire in need of logs. The first woman held hers back. For on the faces around the fire, she noticed that one was black. The next man sat across the way and saw one out of his church and just could not bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The next man sat in tattered clothes while he gave his coat a hitch and said, why should what I have be used to warm the filthy rich? Well, the rich man just sat back and thought of all he had in store. How to keep what he had gained from the dirty, shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight. And all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spike the white. And the last man in this forlorn group did naught but what was gained. Given only to the ones who gave to him was how he played the game. Now these sticks of wood in death's cold grip is proof of human sin. But they did not die from the cold without. They died from the cold within. They died from the cold within. Around that fire, These 6 people, they all have their ideas. They all have their reasons why. And they have their reasons why not. They all had their issues ensconced down into them, taught to them, pressed down into their personalities, their reason for their exclusivity, their reasons for their prejudices. They had their issues. By the way, you know what issue means? It means issue. I've lived long enough to find out, and this is true, that we really don't see life as it is. We see life as we are. And we all have our issues. We all have our reasons. They're pressed down into us. They're taught to us. The people in our group all believe this. It must be right. Look at how many of us believe it. The late Will Rogers said this. He said that ignorance is not so much a matter of what people do not know, as much as it is a matter of what they do know that ain't so. I mean, really, think about this. How very much we know, or at least think we know, that just ain't so. That keeps us from knowing what we could know, and would know, and should know, if we were willing to know. Ignorance is not just a matter of what people do not know. It's a matter of what they do know. Around this fire, there are the people with their reasons. There's a racist around the fire. There's a religious bigot around the fire. There is a person who is class envious around the fire. There is an elitist around the fire. His mantra is, I have, therefore I am. There is a bitter man around the fire who has perhaps suffered some injury, and now he lives in bitterness, and rather than looking forward, he's looking behind him. And there is the last man is simply the old self man, the selfish man. The one who can't see beyond his nose. I had a little tea party one afternoon. It's 3. It was very small, 3 guests in all, just I, myself, and me. Myself ate all the sandwiches, and I drank all the tea. It was also I who ate the pie and passed the cake to me. You know, people like that. Ignorance is not so much a matter of what people do not know, as much as it is a matter of what they do know, but it just ain't so. I think real faith says I must be inclusive. Why? Because I've been included. I preach about and sing about and teach about amazing grace. The reason grace is so amazing is because I've been included. So I believe that real faith, I believe biblical faith, means inclusion. Not just around the table in the workroom. And not just around the table in the boardroom. But around my table in the living room. around your table in the living room. I love it, Emma. I'm glad I'm your friend. I'm glad we're friends. I love that piece about growing personally to see beyond myself. We have our reasons why we're not as inclusive as we might ought to be. But I say again that I believe that real faith means being inclusive because we ourselves have been included. I love the Lord Jesus Christ without apology. I say that anywhere I go. Don't invite me to go anywhere where I can't say that. I love him. And I see how the Lord included the little and the lowly and the least and the last and the lonely and the lost and the looked over and the left out. I see his model of living. And it says to me that this is the way I ought to live. You must be inclusive because you've been included. Lord, help me live from day to day in such a self-forgetful way that even when I kneel to pray, my prayers might be for others. Help me in all I say and do to ever be sincere and true, and know that all I do for you must needs be done for others. Let self be crucified and slain and buried deep and all in vain. May efforts be to live again except to live for others. And when my work on earth is done and my new work in heaven's begun, may I forget the crowns I won while thinking still of others. Others, Lord, yes, others, help. This my motto be. Help me to live for others that I might live like thee. It's the way he lived. A life of inclusion. I want to tell this story. Tina, I'm about to. Okay, good. Well, just a few more things and we'll take the offering. I love this story. We have a Bible study called the Band of Brothers, and Joe Marquise is a member of that. And we have about a couple of hundred men who meet together on Friday mornings, and we have a Bible study. I happen to be the teacher of that Bible study. And white men in there, and black men, and old men, and young men, and retired men, and working men, and business owners, and the U.S. congressmen, and sheriffs, and doctors, and lawyers, and they're all in the room. And this is what I'm sharing with them. I believe it down to my amino acids that we're to love one another. Not just be kind and not just be polite, but to love one another. And I love this story because it's a true story, but it's a life-changing story. The greatest lesson I learned in 12 years of high school, I learned the night I graduated high school. The after graduation party. I learned that night something that was my greatest lesson in all of school, the 12 years of school. We were having a party. It's 1978. I know I don't look that old, but graduated from Glen Academy High School. And we were having a party on Jekyll Island. And my friends and I, we were rocking out on Earth, Wind, and Fire, and Ohio Players, and the Commodores. Yeah. And, so we had rented this condominium down on this end of the building, and down on that end of the building, there was another party going on, but that's where the white kids were. And they were listening to Peter Frampton, Do You Feel Like I Do? And so they cranked their music up, we cranked ours up. We were on this end, they were on that end. Graduation night. We were having a great time. Well, as the night went on into the morning, the parties began to kind of like integrate. Before long, we had a fella come down to our party named Chuck. I won't say his last name. You might be kin to it. But here's what you got to understand. All through my high school years, my friends and I would look across, and we had friends who were white boys and girls, but we would all say about those white dudes, they all wear the same kind of shoes. They were Docksiders. I don't know, you know, those Docksiders had white soles, but I don't know. But they all wear the same kind of shoes. 10th grade, 11th grade, look at the white boys. They all wear the same kind of shoes. That's that. I mean, we say that all the time. Look at it. Same kind of shoes. Graduation night. Party. Chuck comes to our party. And he's a funny dude, and he's standing up and he's talking and we're laughing at Chuck. And then Chuck, right in the middle of our party, said, "Hey, I gotta ask you black dudes something." Like, what do you want to ask us, Chuck? I mean, it's dead quiet. Right? Chuck said, "I want to know something." Keep on talking, Chuck. He says, "I want to know why you black dudes all wear the same kind of shoes." So help me. I looked down, every one of us, to a man, had on the same kind of shoes. I fell back in my chair. I couldn't believe it. How could I have missed this? I mean, I'm a person of reasonable intelligence. How could I have missed? We all had on what was called easy walkers. How could I have missed this? And I've lived long enough to find out it is easy to do. It is easy to be oblivious to the obvious. But the thing I learned is that it is easy to see things in others that you do not see in yourself. And so to end this talk, we're different. And I've lived long enough to know that it is the difference that makes the difference. I need you, and you need me. And that's the way faith says we ought to live. Thank you very much.